Talk to me, Buffs Nation.
He is him. We missed him on 2 deep balls. He get those 2 deep balls. The Heisman is at his crib chilling right now. God bless.
We got a special treat for you all. We got my guy David Talks Buffs from David Talks Buffs here on YouTube. My man B, I've been doing that Colorado content. David, man, what's going on?
Jay, thanks for having me on, man. This is a long time overdue. I'm glad we're finally able to connect, chop it up. You know, there isn't a better time to be talking about Colorado. So thanks again, man.
How do you feel about this class? Like on 3, talk some recruiting. On 3 has Colorado as the number 2 team in the Big 12 in recruiting. And it's funny because as we're talking about recruiting, Coach Prime said that infamous quote, you know, he ain't that concerned about high school recruiting. He's looking for guys that can play today. Yeah. So you may have a small class here, but you're going to hit that transfer portal hard. And I've watched a lot of your content. You've been dropping a lot of nuggets around the transfer portal. First off, how you feel about that second-ranked Big 12 recruiting class, and let's dive into some of these portal targets.
Well, regarding the high school recruiting, I think Coach Prime is kind of proven, especially with this year, that I think that he was a little ahead of the curve with kind of reading how maybe having some of these bigger high school classes might backfire with, you know, a handful of blue chip guys just jumping into the portal after their freshman year. And I think that it's clear that he's taken the approach of, like, we're not even bringing you into town on a visit unless there's some serious interest here that, like, we want you and, you know, you're going to play early, whether that's, you know, your freshman, sophomore year. Most of our freshmen got on the field last year. A handful of them did this year as well. And because he's been consistent with that, I think it does hold a lot of weight when we reach out to a high school recruit saying, hey, we want you here. He kind of has proven it to where, you're not just a number here if you're recruited here from high school. And I think that's allowed us to kind of focus a little bit more on the quality rather than the quantity, which that's great to hear that our rating is so high for that class. To be honest, I don't pay too much attention for the overall grades because I just feel like sometimes these recruiting sites, they don't really understand our strategy can be a little bit different against the grain. But, you know, that's why I always thought it would work here with Colorado. I know this is a bit of a digression, Jay, but, you know, Boulder, it's eccentric. It's a little bit different. There's a huge startup ecosystem there. So it's very entrepreneurial. It's very think outside the box. It's very go against the grain, but stick to your guns, stick with conviction. And Coach Prime hasn't wavered throughout these 3 recruiting cycles with his conviction. And I think that that's really starting to pay off now. You're seeing other schools start to, I think, appreciate that and also move in that same direction. So with the transfer portal, I think it's fantastic. I think that we've been able to do a really good job, especially last year, bringing in guys that have multiple years of eligibility. And because of that, we're not necessarily going to see 40 new transfers in this year. Like, that's just not going to happen. But we have enough foundation laid to where now this is the first time, Jay, where I feel like we're really able to target specific position groups, whereas the last 2 previous years, we've been trying to get pretty much anybody at every position type of thing. And this is the year where I think our offensive line becomes a net positive for us rather than a liability. And our defensive line, takes another step forward. But I think you will see us put a better supporting cast, I think, around Julian Lewis. That's definitely has to be the priority.
Speaking of Julian, you've got him coming in as potentially battling for the quarterback position, but Caden Slater from Liberty is supposed to be pulling up to visit and check out the school. You see Colorado bringing in another quarterback to bring a veteran presence to kind of buffer with Juju, or what you thinking on that?
Well, I mean, of course we're bringing in Julian Lewis to be that guy, but he's going to have to earn it just like everybody else. And Right now, our quarterback room outside of Julian Lewis leaves a lot to be desired. I'm not trying to throw any shade at anybody in the quarterback room, but it's it's not nearly as good enough. Like, for instance, you see Georgia, they just put another 4-star guy back there after Carson Beck goes down. They don't miss a beat. We don't kind of have that luxury right now. We don't have the luxury that Texas has with Arch Manning, but we need to provide solid competition in case Juju isn't ready. We need somebody that's taken a lot of snaps and is really experienced and that can make the plays. So I would love it if we bring in, Caden Salter. I think he's been really productive at Liberty. Not the most accurate passer, but I wouldn't see him as like an immediate starter over Julian Lewis. I think it would be a legitimate competition. And so whoever we bring in, though, from my understanding, it's not going to be for free. They're going to be bringing in somebody who is compensated versus with NIL, and we need a deep quarterback room. Right now, we don't have one.
No, that does make sense because you're losing Sheduer, and that's a lot of production heading to the league. I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. He's a senior. He's been in college football 4 years. He's at that age where he has officially aged out. But you're 100% spot on there that you got to have good competition. That way you're growing, just growing Julian Lewis himself as well. Competition, it's like innovation leads to, competition leads to innovation. And for Julian, the big thing is having somebody behind him to push him or somebody in front of him to push him to try to surpass him. You can't have anybody get too comfortable, especially at the collegiate level, because they're not there long enough for you to just, sit there and just sit on them. You got to get them going. So, no, you're 100% spot on with that. There's a lot of good players coming in to do visits. You saw Jaheim Otis, which I think he left recently, and he took another visit. But there's a lot of predictions out for him to go to Colorado. Mm-hmm. That's a big one right there.
Yeah. Again, with us being able to kind of, if you're looking at it from a salary cap perspective, right, to kind of position our big spending towards the trenches, that's definitely a focus so far this year. And you might wonder, hey, why didn't we go after a guy like Micah Hudson or maybe one of these other top recruited receivers in the portal? Now, we are getting a visit with NC State wide receiver Kevin Concepcion, which will be great. But, I don't know if we're going to be paying top dollar in the portal for wide receivers. Like maybe you've seen Oregon do with Evan
Stewart. Yeah,
Evan Stewart last year, that type of thing. Because, Jay, we've had a lot of success bringing guys up from the G5 level and having success here. LaJohntay Wester, Jimmy Horn, Xavier Weaver last year. And so we have some other fun visits at the wide receiver position coming on. We have, again, I said Kevin Concepcion. We have Joseph Williams, 6'2" wide receiver from Tulsa. He was the AAC Offensive Freshman of the Year. Yeah. We have Eric Rivers visiting from FIU. He put up almost 1,200 yards receiving on only 62 receptions this past year as a true sophomore.
Wow.
In double-digit touchdowns, if I remember correctly. And then lastly, with the Julian Lewis connection, former 4-star or 5-star, I forget, tight end / wide receiver Caleb Odom. He was Julian Lewis's high school teammate there in Carrollton, Georgia. I think he might want to play more wide receiver, but he's 6'5", 220 pounds. And so that might be kind of the big fish that we're going after, so to speak. But he hasn't gotten a lot of playing time at Alabama yet, but I think he would slot in very nicely with the recruited talent that we have here, like you mentioned, Omarion Miller and a handful of other guys, Draylon Miller. But, I think we might go big spending on the trenches and then maybe kind of play a little bit more money ball, finding some smaller school guys to come up and strengthen the wide receiver core.
No, and that's a fair point, especially with the Odom pickup. Man, that would be huge. Being teammates with Julian gives you that connection. I did see that he was headed off to go do another set of visits, but man, I think Colorado has a good chance of bringing him, especially because of the vision there. And like you said, Coach Prime and them have done a very, very good job with getting dudes from G5 and having them being very productive at the P4 level, to the point of, I mean, even their high school recruits are pretty darn good. You know, like I said, Amarion Miller, Draylon Miller, he came across great as soon as Amarion went down. And so having layers upon layers upon layers of wide receivers that are ready to produce, I can totally see that's one area. Even though Odom will be fantastic to have just because of the connection with Juju, you're pretty good at wide receiver. You're fine. Like there's no real reason to really jump too hard at that. It's really going to be the heavy focus in the trenches, secondary. Saw some secondary folks coming through. What was it? The guy from USF.
Bayard. Tafik Bayard.
Yeah, the Bayard. Yes. Grab him.
Yes.
That get do like a Shiloh borderline replacement, or at least rotational piece there in the safety room. And then, of course, you got to build the trenches. The offensive line and D-line are the two things that's got to get growing. But I'm going to be honest, man. There's a lot of opportunity to play at Colorado because, like you said, a lot of this is earned. It's not given. You come in, if you compete. I mean, hell, look at Cash Cleveland. I mean, he walk on. He stole somebody's job. He didn't steal it. He earned it. He walked in there and took it. It's mine. It's my white punk.
Yeah, it's a great environment. And I think kind of going back to our conversation before we started, Jay, you know, we're talking a little bit about like the whole Bill Belichick type of thing. You know, similar to, you know, UNC, there's going to be guys that are just really hungry for that sort of environment, that want to be there. It's the same thing for Coach Prime. Just like, you know, Michigan under Jim Harbaugh was really, really unique. You kind of needed a certain kind of a specifically wired guy that would fit into that program really well. It's kind of the same thing here at Colorado, where I think that's why you've seen us develop a really solid pipeline and relationship with IMG. We've brought on some staff members that were previously employed there, stuff like that. Yeah. But it's kind of a professional environment. You're expected to put in a lot of work outside of the given hours, and it's truly a professional environment to where, I mean, you can see this in the documentaries and the videos and stuff like that, where it's a pro style environment where every day you're coming in there, and somebody's looking to take your job, and the recruiting staff is looking for somebody better than you. And some people are really going to thrive in that environment. Some people it is not. But as Coach Prime's been able to be here and truly lay a foundation, you're starting to get the right guys that thrive with that kind of pressure.
Nope. That's the fair point right there. You're right. You're getting guys that don't mind the pressure to go from coal into diamonds, and they are definitely just letting that pressure be applied and going for it, man. We're talking to David Talks Buffs from YouTube. David, man, thank you for pulling up with us on the channel, man. Let the people know where they can find you.
Oh, well, thank you again, Jay. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at David Talks Buffs. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, David Talks Buffs. You know, I put out video content every day from, you know, a CU graduate's perspective. So it's a lot of fun. If you want to laugh, come to my channel. If you want to have some serious takes too, you know, you can come to my channel. But the one thing that I promise is that you will leave entertained every single time.
Absolutely. And I'm a little disappointed you didn't put the horns on for us today.
I got them right here. Here.
And he is dedicated. Look at, see?
I got the Ralphie horns.
He's got his Ralphies going, and we knew that he wasn't playing around with it. Man, I appreciate you pulling up.
Absolutely, Jay. Let's do this again soon.
We will definitely.